All right. So just a quick couple of thank yous. Thank you to the Center for Arts and Society. Thanks, Paul, for that introduction, and Anna for your hard work as well. Thanks to Tim and Pat who are going to follow me. I kind of feel like, it's a State of the Union address, and the Republicans are going to then get up and say something, but and it actually, if it is like the State of the Union, it won't have anything to do with my speech at all. Because that's kind of what the Republicans did. And also, thank you to Jerry Costanza and the CMU Press for putting out this book, because without them, I couldn't have done it. And also John Carson, who's going to be doing a workshop with me on Saturday as sort of part of this whole weekend of events. Okay, so what I like to do is just sort of get into talking about how I got started as a cartoonist, and then I will tell you a little bit about how my brain works. I won't show you any CAT scans of brains or anything like that. But I do have a connection to medicine. My father was a pulmonary physician for the University of Pittsburgh, and although I was born in Philadelphia, but we eventually both ended up in Pittsburgh, and he developed a process early on called lung lavage, which was where they would wash out patients' lungs with saline, and of course the way they did it was they put a tube down their throat and washed it out. But he used to ask me to draw cartoons for him for his talk. So one time he asked me to draw something about him, and I consider this my sort of first editorial cartoon. It's not the first cartoon I ever drew, but boy, I would have been amazing if that was the case. No, this is my dad, the lung washer, and this is how I drew him. And of course, he's not using the tube. He's washing them out in a bucket. And of course, and my spelling was just as good back then as it is now, as you can see there. I consider this my first editorial cartoon because I actually went after somebody in power. I drew my dad without hair, and he had a full head of hair till he died, but this is how I depicted him, and he never quite understood why I did that, but it just looked funnier, so anyway, he used to use my cartoons in his talks, in his medical talks, because he said it helps keep people awake during the process. So I'm going to use the same theory, except in between my cartoons, I'm going to show you some lungs. And this is an emphysema lung here. Not very pretty. But my parents knew early on that I was a special kid. Here's a photograph of me. And of course, my dad wasn't the only talented one in the family. My mom was pretty cool too. This is a picture of her. She was the disciplinarian, of course. But I'll start out by a little insight into my brain besides what you just saw. But will be how I come up with ideas. And so a lot of people ask me that question. So I wanted to dispel some myths about the whole creativity process. And so I came up with sort of these myths of creativity that I want to dispel. So where do I get my ideas? I'm always amazed that people ask me that question as if there's a vending machine around the corner or something with ideas in it. I wish there was, but there isn't, and they don't sell them on eBay either. But there is no store. So here I sort of did a takeoff on IKEA. It's a big world. Someone's got to furnish it with good ideas. So there is no store. There are no elves that come in the middle of the night to help me think of ideas. Ideas don't just drop out of the sky. And there's no little switch on the back of my head that I can turn on and off. No, actually what happens is the process of coming up with an idea is a little bit more like when a hunter goes out into the woods and sort of waits for his prey to come walking by so he can shoot him. I have to sort of read the newspapers and put all the information in and then sort of wait for the idea to come. And so I sort of illustrate that here. It's a little bit like, you set the trap. You kind of set the trap with the newspaper, the stories, the headlines, watching the cable news, getting stories off the internet. And that's kind of the cheese. And then I just wait till the idea pops in and I trap it. And once I have an idea that's sort of not fully formed, swirling around in there, it feels a little bit like being pregnant. Quick, call the editor, my water broke. And then, of course, there's nothing prouder than a cartoonist with a newborn idea. But now, once I come up with an idea, I still have to get it past my editor. And he can be pretty intimidating. Here's a photo of him. Oftentimes he doesn't like the cartoon, and he'll send me back to do another one. Here he is sending me back. But this gets me into the difficulty of dealing with editors, between cartoonists and editors. And I did this cartoon. It's called Further Evidence That Cartoonists Are from Mars and Editors Are from Venus. I did this for an editor's magazine. And this will give you a little bit of an idea about the difference between the cartoonist's brain and the editor's brain. So first we have the cartoonist's brain. And what's on the cartoonist's mind are, the biggest part of his brain is toilet humor. Then you have things like winning a Pulitzer, keeping his or her job, and that tiny little part of the cartoonist's brain, that's taste. All right, then you have the editor's brain. So he's got a lot more things on his mind. He's thinking about not offending readers, keeping the publisher happy, winning a Pulitzer, kissing up to advertisers, the bottom line, and that little tiny part of the editor's brain, that's sense of humor. So you can see the difference is very stark. And it really is, something that needs a lot of explaining, because people don't understand. They're word people. They're not visual people by trade. So what's funny is that I have an editor, one of my editors, John Allison, who would always look at my cartoon, and he would never laugh at the drawing or even comment on the drawing. He would just say, "Oh, you missed a comma here," And he would just keep a straight face. And those of you who have met him, I know some of you have, you would understand that. And of course, at a newspaper, we use a style book, and it's called the AP style book. And so here he is telling me that, according to the Associated Press, poophead is 2 words. So yeah, John he's not a laugh a minute. He has a very dry sense of humor, but he is funny. I mean, he can be funny. That's not when he's reading my cartoons. Okay, so here I am sitting at my drawing table looking at a story about cloning. So this will give you an idea sort of the process. So I think to myself, okay, so they're cloning a bunch of sheep, right? So what's scary about that? Well, obviously it's not really about the sheep. What people are worried about is the next step. So I think, well, what would really scare me about cloning? Well, this would scare me. But of course, not everybody knows John Allison, so I have to somehow work that into a more topical cartoon that everybody can understand. So back in the 90s, when Clinton was in the White House and Newt Gingrich was giving him a hard time, I drew this cartoon. And Clinton is saying, "I never should have approved funding for those cloning experiments." And of course, you got all these little newts running around. All right. So one of the things that people ask me after they try to find out where I get my ideas, the next thing that they ask me is, why didn't I go into medicine? So, with a successful father who was the chief of pulmonary medicine, why didn't I go into medicine? Well, I finally just decided to write down and illustrate the top 10 reasons that I didn't go into medicine. And here they are. Number 1, basically my dad's feet were way too big. Following in his footsteps would have been as embarrassing as my teen years, so I decided not to do that. So then number 9, my handwriting was just too good. Why is your father crying? I got an A in penmanship. Number 8, there are too many big words. You've got some serious disease I can't pronounce, but don't worry, Dr. What's-His-Name, the whatchamacallit specialist, will be along shortly and he can tell you what it is. Number 7, on call is not a concept that I embrace. Doesn't this damn thing have a snooze button? Number 6, there's too much to remember. Let's see, how does that song go? The thigh bone's connected to the knee bone. The knee bone's connected. Number 5, malpractice insurance is too high. Notice anything unusual in the x-ray, doctor? No, I can't see since I lost my glasses last week. Number 4, I just hate the fashion. These would be good for a winter, but I'm really more of an autumn. Number 3, everyone's too darn serious. Just make the incision, doctor. And number 2, I hate golf. This is the last time I let you pick the course. You're just sore because I bogeyed on the windmill. And the number 1 reason I did not go into medicine, there are too many bodily fluids. Whose lemonade is this, and what happened to my urine sample? So, you'll like this next one. This is chronic bronchitis. Just something to, keep you awake. So basically, when I look at the body of my work, and when I was sort of like putting together this book, it was interesting to see how themes repeated themselves. But it was also interesting to sort of latch on to which cartoons. I would come across some cartoons and I would say, wow, that one everybody liked, but it was just because they liked it because it was funny. It didn't really offend anybody, but they really liked it. And then I'd find one and I'd say, ooh, that one really got people pissed off. So really, when it comes down to it, there are kind of 2 groups. There are cartoons, 2 kinds of cartoons. Cartoons that piss people off and the ones that don't piss people off. I said upset people because, tried to be, I did a library the other day and I didn't want to, get people mad. But anyway, so I'm going to start out with some cartoons that do upset people and give you sort of an idea of what happens there. Race is a topic that I get into trouble from time to time, oftentimes because the subtlety and the irony or the humor is lost because the subject matter is so serious that people can't see beyond the fact that I'm saying something about race. Which is actually, I just got a call from KDKA. They're doing a story about my cartoon that ran yesterday. The police are up in arms about it, and I don't know if any of you saw the Brute on Grant that I did. Yeah, they didn't like the part about the racist skinhead etiquette handbook. So it was about Jordan Miles and the beating that happened in Homewood. Anyway, it does get me into trouble. Here's one with a guy that says, we deserve reparations for slavery, and the white guy is saying, hey, we just gave you people 2 Oscars, isn't that enough? This was right after Denzel Washington and Halle Berry won the Oscar. And people just, some people, not everybody, but some people in the African American community thought I was saying, yes, this is enough. And of course, that's not what I'm saying. I'm trying to make fun of the white guy, but it doesn't always come across. So I got some letters and phone calls on this one. This one I got even more letters and phone calls. This is a Southern guy talking about the Confederate flag, and he says, I like to look up the flagpole and see a symbol of our Southern heritage hanging there. What's so wrong about that? So, I'm obviously trying to say that the Confederate flag, there's more to it than just a symbol of the South. And this actually was ran in a university paper in Oklahoma City, and the editor got fired after running it, and they had a big stink on the news and everything else, and it was a shame. But they just didn't understand that I was actually saying that that we need to be sensitive to these kinds of things. This is right after Katrina. The FEMA's Guide to Avoiding Disaster. Step 1, gather up emergency rations of food, water, and clothing. Step 2, move to a rich white neighborhood. Another topic that gets me into plenty of trouble is religion, and we have a very Catholic city here. So anytime I draw a cartoon about the Pope, it has to go through the publisher first because he's tired of the bishop calling and yelling at him. So, and that's a true story. I'm not making it up. I did get a chewing. I got chewed out by Bishop Worrell back when this new Pope Benedict was first in office, because I did a cartoon about it. But so here's one when the Pope visited with Castro. You're an aging leader of a beleaguered belief system who tolerates no dissent. What do you want from me? Pointers. You can imagine this one actually got notated in the Vatican newsletter, and they said how much they hated it. But here's the one that Bishop Worrell didn't like. He said I made him look like Uncle Fester. And I said, have you looked at him? He kind of looks like Uncle Fester. But this is something that Benedict actually said. He said, the Cardinals elected me a simple, humble worker in the vineyard of the Lord. So I just took his quote and had him saying it, but of course he's stomping the liberal grapes because he was much more conservative than even John Paul. And, you know, as it turns out, he's been a better pope than people thought, but it still, you know, at the time, people thought this was the case. So so I got some, oh, wait, I thought there was a letter after this. I had one, I got lots of letters on this, and some guy said that, you know, look, check your watches. It only took Rob Rogers like 5 minutes to make fun of the new pope, you know. So, you know, people are sensitive to anything, you know, whenever their sacred cow is attacked in any way, people get upset. And it's understandable. This next one did not run in the paper. It's a sketch, but it was after the Boston Diocese got into all that trouble with the pedophile scandal. And at the same time, they were still looking for Osama bin Laden, so I did this cartoon. I heard this was a good place for evildoers to hide. Yeah, they didn't even let this get past the sketch stage. Yeah. Now, you know, I have had cartoons that were approved, and they got into the paper at least, you know, enough for me to leave that day, and then I wake up the next morning and open it, and it's not in there. And one of them was after a similar incident where there was a pedophile scandal in Cincinnati, and it was right around Christmas time. So I had a little kid standing in front of Santa Claus. Santa Claus is reaching down, and the little kid's looking at him and saying, "You're not a priest, are you?" And so I came in the next day. The publisher had decided at the last minute to kill it, and I get this phone call like a couple days later from one of my syndicated clients, because it went out for syndication. And he said, "Wow, we're getting all kinds of letters down here in Florida on this cartoon that you ran. It's a piece of work." He's like, "What kind of response have you gotten?" and then when I told him what happened, he said, "Coward." You know, he called the publisher a coward. But so yeah, this is. And here, this one was just a funny one, I thought. But you know, just about all the times they want to put the 10 Commandments up outside of government buildings. So I just sort of made up other religions. You know, 10 laws of Zen Howdy Doodyism. That's my religion. The 10 tips of the cult of the grilled cheese virgin, 10 Commandments of NASCAR, and the Area 51 Disciples Credo. Comparative Religion 2004. Are you a Mel Gibson Catholic? No, more of a Richard Gere Buddhist. I'm a Cat Stevens Muslim. I prefer Madonna's Kabbalah. I practice Adam Sandler Judaism. I just think it's funny how we look to the stars to tell us who we should believe in or how we should worship, you know. I hope they can keep religion out of the presidential race. Too late. This, of course, was when they were going into the churches and wooing the friendly congregations, as they called them, and scaring them with, you know, the gay marriage thing, you know, how that's going to really destroy us. This was Bush's Middle East democracy garden, and this was after, you know, he watered it a little, and there's Hamas winning the election, and he's like, "Oops." Then after the Danish cartoon situation, I did this cartoon. It was just basically sort of a caricature of me, and this is after all the violence that happened surrounding the cartoons. Another topic that gets me into trouble are guns, and here's one I did after the Virginia Tech shooting. The tragic shooting at Virginia Tech makes me want to hug my loved ones and tell them it'll be okay. They're there. This is the NRA saying, "You can have my congressman when you pry him from my cold, dead fingers." Congressman looks happy. Yeah. I don't know what's going on there. War is another topic that gets me some mail. I think it's interesting that the U.S. sort of, you know, tries to spread peace, or at least the image of peace, but then we're always the one that's making the weapons for all these other countries. So, you know, it just strikes me as humorous. Here's one right as we were going into Iraq. Bush saying, "You no longer have to live under the iron-fisted regime of the evil Saddam. We're here to liberate you." The U.S. just transferred sovereignty to our interim government, but all I got was this lousy T-shirt. This doesn't feel like my flight suit. This was right after Abu Ghraib. And that image that they took of the one guy. One of the things they were criticized for during this war was that Rumsfeld was criticized for not properly giving enough armor to the soldiers. And he said, hey, you go to war with the army you have, not the army you wish you had. And so I took that quote and rephrased it a little bit. And he's saying, you go to war with the arms and legs you have. They're not the arms and legs you might want or wish to have at a later time. So this got some letters. But the most letters I've gotten ever was this next cartoon. And this was during the 60th anniversary. We were celebrating the 60th anniversary of the Hiroshima bombing. And so I drew this mushroom cloud on the TV, 60th anniversary. And the kid is saying, which terrorist group did that? So you can imagine. Here's one of the letters here. The palpable stupidity of Rogers likening Hiroshima to today's terrorism should be, but is not an embarrassment to any thinking person. The editor should not be pleased with what passes as provocative thought on the editorial page of their papers. I like this sentence. If there's a more primitive mind than Mr. Rogers published in the leading paper of a sizable U.S. city, I'd be amazed. John of Pittsburgh. This isn't you, John, is it? Yeah, so this got me a lot of letters from, obviously vets called me up and said, was I saying that every soldier was a terrorist? And I said, no. World War II vets were calling me. And, and then I ended up writing an op-ed piece about it because we got so many letters. So, but it's nice to have the dialogue. I mean, obviously, I think one of the reasons we celebrate anniversaries is because we look back on them and we sort of talk about, was it the right thing to do? Did we, would we do it again? I don't think we would do it again. So, so that's why in this day and age, it would seem like a terrorist attack. So here's the real reason Saddam was found. Sorry, pal, but your spider hole is in the way of our oil pipeline. That's Halliburton there. And then remember the unfortunate photograph of Saddam Hussein in his underwear on the front of the Daily News or something. I did this cartoon. At least you've got briefs. This is because, of course, we're ruining our image abroad with the war. Well, they think they found out why Saddam was acting so crazy. He wasn't getting enough oxygen to the brain. As you can see from this X-ray of his, there was a lot of lung congestion going on there. Another topic that got me lots of letters over the last 8 years was George W. Bush. And the interesting thing about him is how his caricature changed as his policies became more outrageous. So this is just sort of to show you the evolution of the ears. This is how I drew him actually each of these years. So this is him in '99, before anybody really knew anything about him. And then here he is in November of '99. His ears start to get a little bigger, his eyes a little closer together. Here he is in 2000 when he's actually running, and then in 2001, the ears are really growing, and now I'm drawing his eyes as just little dots, really close together. And finally, here's how I sort of have been drawing him the rest of the time. So he has devolved. We just celebrated Groundhog's Day, so I'll start with this cartoon here. I was wrong about him having weapons of mass destruction, but he was still a threat. And then I drew a cartoon after the 9/11 Commission came up with the evidence that there had been warnings about what was going to happen, that actually someone was going to fly planes into buildings. I did this cartoon as sort of a takeoff. It's nice to use metaphors that people understand, like the groundhog or movie metaphors. This is a metaphor for using a Wizard of Oz. So here's Osama saying, surrender Dorothy, or I'll fly planes into buildings. You got the FBI saying, what's it mean? CIA, it's too vague. And Bush saying, yeah, and who is this Dorothy character? Of course, I love Cheney with the need a heart sticker on him there. He's the Tin Man, of course. Now back when this is the only speaking of movie parodies, this is Dr. Strangelove. That doesn't need any explanation. But when he was running for office, or when he was running again, he said, he was going to show no photos of the dead soldiers returning in the coffins. But then, of course, his ad, to elect Bush, re-elect Bush, showed sort of the heroism during 9/11, and they showed the coffin of one of the bodies coming out. So I drew this cartoon. We refused to show footage of coffins returning from Iraq out of respect for the families. But speaking of coffins, and of course he's doing a dance. That one got me some letters. But I do like to use these, speaking about the movie parodies earlier, when Bush started hammering away at gay marriage with this sort of wedding amendment or marriage amendment, it was about the same time that The Lord of the Rings was out, so I drew this little cartoon here. It's the Lord of the Wedding Ring, and he's saying, "Precious distracts from tricksy Iraq and deficits. We loves Precious." I just love drawing him like that. I mean, it was just so much fun. And I knew that not everybody would get it, because I knew not everybody had seen the movie, but I figured, it works. So this is when he helped open the National Museum of the American Indian. "This museum will serve as a reminder of when cowboys first came to this country and were greeted as liberators." Now, this next cartoon was back when, I don't know if you remember the story about Jeff Gannon in the White House press corps, who was always throwing these softball questions to Bush, and he was very conservative. And it turned out that not only was he a fake reporter, but he was also had been linked to these gay porn websites. And then at the same time that they discovered this guy, at the same time, they were also, the White House was paying different pundits to go on the air and actually tout their policies of, the marriage amendment and No Child Left Behind. So I drew this cartoon. I've lost track. Which ones are we paying and which ones are giving it away for free? I just like drawing the press corps looking like that. And then the Valerie Plame thing happened, and there was the big leak, and some cartoons are just fun to draw. Like this one was fun to draw, and so was this next one. This is Karl Rove as the White House fountain, and he's saying it's not a leak. He's supposed to do that. Just drawing Karl Rove as a cherub was fun. And then, of course, the whole scene with Dick Cheney shooting his friend. Here's Bush saying, "Don't feel bad, Dick. I thought I was flushing out terrorists when I accidentally bagged this one." Now, speaking of Pope cartoons, the Pope recently went to Washington to visit Bush, and Bush's ratings were so low that I drew this cartoon here. Sorry. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I missed one. Okay, so this is Bush commenting to the press. Now, don't go all negative when you report this. It's fun to use, old movie parodies, but it's also fun to use famous photographs that everyone recognizes, because you don't have to explain. The Hindenburg, it was a disaster. The Iraq War, it's a disaster. It's pretty easy to understand. Okay, so here's the cartoon I was talking about. "His approval ratings are so low, I insisted he ride inside." Now, this next cartoon, this got me a lot of letters as well. This is when Bush made the mistake of saying that he had given up golf as his sacrifice for the war, when asked. So I drew this. "I know how you feel. Iraq forced me to give up golf, too." Now, this got letters. Some people wrote saying that they agreed with the cartoon and they thought it was a very powerful image and all that, but I did get some letters from some people who thought I was using these wounded vets as a punchline, but I really that wasn't the intention. But you're always going to get some of that mixed feedback from people. As I said, the serious cartoons, sometimes the subject matter is just too serious, and people don't think it belongs in a cartoon no matter what. All right, so just sort of summing up Bush's whole thing. Here's Nixon with Watergate saying mistakes were made. Reagan with Iran-Contra saying mistakes were made, and Bush saying mission accomplished. And we were just talking earlier about Cheney. Here's one that I did about him. This is not on the government's endangered species list, the bald ego. I like to I like to soar majestically above the laws of man. This was the one that this was drawn after he decided that the vice president was not a part of any branch of government, that it was its own ruling body. Here they are leaving office, and Cheney's saying, "I'm going to miss him most of all." This is when the waterboarding stuff came out. I drew Bush and Cheney surfing. This waterboarding is way tubular. Dude, we're totally shredding the Geneva Convention. Illegal immigration, not in my backyard. Gitmo prisoner relocation, not in my backyard. Gay marriage, not in my backyard. Torture, you can use my backyard. All right, so those are some of the topics that really upset people. Now we're going to get on to some other cartoons that don't upset people. Although, occasionally somebody gets upset about these topics too, but not as much. Do you think math and science are more important than English and literature? 7 of one, half dozen of another. I actually have been showing this cartoon for years in schools, and if they don't laugh, I know there's a problem. They're like, what? I can't wait to start working in my chosen field. Neither can I. Your grade in history is a national embarrassment. Chill out, Dad. You're acting like it's the Canadian Missile Crisis or something. Healthcare is another one. Although it used to not upset people as much as it does now because it's become a very polarizing issue. But these are some cartoons I've done on it. I'm worried that healthcare has become too impersonal, Doc. Nonsense. Just relax and lie back on the barcode scanner. Speaking of which, I actually used that cartoon on the back, and that barcode on his back is the barcode for the book. So I thought that was fun. Now, the one in the original cartoon here was, I think, was like a box of Twinkies or something. But the USDA is giving its food pyramid a makeover. What's wrong with the one we have now? Sorry, pal, there's a 5-day waiting period on that cupcake. Guess I'll have to resort to the bake sale loophole. This was after a story came out that said obesity was now the #1 killer. The economy, again, another topic that, in the old days really didn't upset people as much, but now people are pissed. This is sort of the falling dollar. This cartoon I did in the 80s, 1987 actually, and you could run it today. I mean, this is about the IRS, and the guy says, if you can make it through our obstacle course, you have what it takes to be a successful IRS agent. Number 1, steal candy from a baby. Number 2, my favorite, pummel the bunny. Number 3, tear up an old woman's pension check. And number 4, kick the little guy while he's down. Job outsourced, no health care, up to my ears in credit card debt. Look on the bright side. No one will want to steal your identity. The good news, we've discovered life on Mars. The bad news, they're willing to work for 1/10 of your salaries. Now this cartoon, this sort of harkens back to my art days. I did Edward Munch's The Scream, and sort of combined that with the Starbucks logo because they were closing all these Starbucks stores. And I mean, anytime Starbucks start to disappear, we're in trouble. Skip the lead-tainted toys from China. Just leave me cash, preferably in euros. All in favor of a stimulus plan to fix the salvage plan, to prop up the rescue plan, to save the bailout plan. We buy ugly houses, banks, and businesses. Now this next one is just sort of a reflection on not only, the auto industry, but my own industry here. Dinosaurs in trouble, Ford, GM, Chrysler, and then of course, delivering the news, extra, extra, read all about it. Yep. The environment is another topic that I like to draw things about. This is back in the 80s when there were a lot of oil spills, oil tankers spilling oil. And she says, could you rub some oil on me, dear? Just wait, the tide's almost in. The evil queen? No, pesticides. Again, with the when you do a parody of a movie that's so familiar to people, it's a great device because people understand it immediately. This is a different kind of tree hugger, and this is Bush hugging the logging industry. He's so cute, isn't he? Like a little tree frog. Now, you guys remember the movie The Day After? At one point in the scene, the scene of the movie, the snow covers the whole place, and the Statue of Liberty is sticking out, and The Day After Tomorrow. And on the plus side, we have finally have an excuse to use our four-wheel drive. Truly American pledge. I pledge allegiance to fossil fuel for the SUVs of America and to the engine in which it burns, one nation, under gas, combustible with carbon monoxide for all. Are we running out of time? Yeah, we are? Okay. Let me see. What's that? Okay. I'm going to have to jump through some stuff here, but equal rights. I'll show you these two. Well, I'll skip that one, but this next one. I brought you to the office today, honey, to show you what you could look forward to if you were a man. Elections are great. This is the Marquis de Sade, and I approve this message. It's going to be a long, painful campaign. Poor Ralph, he couldn't even land the Green Party this time. Elections, of course, elections, of course, are the most fun for anybody. All right, so here's one I did about Balloon Boy and sort of the 24-hour cable news and all the stuff we eat, junk food. Here's, can you fix it? No, unfortunately, 24-hour Michael Jackson coverage is included in the basic package. This is all sort of under pop culture. And then this one, the only way the iPhone can live up to the hype. We've got text, we've got photos, you've got maps, Iraq exit strategy, end to global warming, universal health care, fair immigration, a cure for cancer, and the Paris Hilton news blocker. Okay, so I wanted to show you, I wanted to end with some stuff about Pittsburgh. Obviously, sometimes these do upset people, like the one I did yesterday, but sometimes they're just for fun. And I really enjoy doing them because they get a lot of reaction from people locally. And one of the things I do is brood on Grant, so that's what I'll start with. This was after we won the Super Bowl last year. And it says, Frodo Baggins, what brings you to the Fair Shire? I'm here to meet the true Lords of the Rings. You mean the Steelers? Yes, they endured a treacherous journey. They were clawed by eagles, crushed by giants, trampled by colts, and felled by titans, but they kept going. They fought their way past the cave trolls and the orcs, even outsmarted that trickster Gollum. See, here I used Wizenhunt as Gollum. And then he says, what will you do when you find them? Get them to sign my cape. Get in line. Have you seen that new organ transplant show on CBS called Three Rivers? It should be called Three Livers. It's a little bland. I wish it had more local flavor. Our quaint dialect. So, Doc, can you guys read up my pancreas in that? Our eating habits. Putting fries on your sandwich isn't good for your heart. Who knew? And our sports teams. Is Philadelphia an organ donor? This is, of course, baseball season I'm talking about here. The surgeon could transplant the Phillies to PNC Park. That would be something to watch. All right, so just quickly, the last one. This iPhone is cool, and of course, my depiction of the mayor is one of the more fun things that I like to do. With the juice box, Did you download the new iBerg app, Mayor? No, I'm playing Frogger. What's iBerg? Well, it's the first iPhone application that lets citizens register complaints with their city. I thought that was what my answering machine was for. People can take photos of local nuisances and send them to City Hall. Cool. I'm sending all my pics of Honorado and City Council. Haha. Including Peduto? Hee hee, you said Peduto. Can I rig it so it ignores the 311 calls while I play Frogger? I'll bet there's an app for that. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.